what is it that you love about being a mom?
Oh my gosh. And this has been one of the great lessons for me. It's one of the most profound and mundane experiences all in the same moment. And there is a lesson for me. There's been a lesson in life for me that it doesn't have to all be amazing, incredible, and interesting and keep me entertained. It's okay for me not to be entertained in that space, or maybe even not to want to be there. With that not being a negative thing. So I found motherhood to be profound and enlightening and mundane and infuriating all in the same moment. And I like that.
It's all beautiful.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels authentic to me.
What is the hardest thing about being a mom?
Well, it's interesting you ask that now, given the whole teenage thing. Woo, patience.
Yeah.
Patience. And keeping myself reminded that his brilliant 14-year-old brain is not a developed brain. And that brain is going to do some crazy things. And it does. So just keeping that front of mind. Don't respond to the act. Yeah. Try and figure out in that moment how you can get rid of the frustration that you feel in that moment and find that connection with that person that maybe, with my son, who's doing something that is literally freaking me out, like on some level, and then trying to turn that around, trying to turn that into something that doesn't make it a friction point between us, but rather a point where I can kind of talk to him. And also, too, prepare him for the world, because we annoy each other. We humans annoy each other. So how do you act in that moment when someone is driving you nuts? You need to find a way, especially if you love and respect and care about that person, you need to find a way to navigate that emotion.
I'm going to use that advice for my 4-year-old. It works for 14 and 4.
Yeah.
Very similar.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. How has being a mom affected you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I started Mellow actually because when my son was diagnosed, one of the first things we did was look at the nutritional things he was eating. And I realized that even in kids' food, there's so much crap in it that it made me really, I think probably because I have a child's palate, I went to the sweet stuff, but it made me start to examine the ingredients from a different perspective. Excuse me, I was examining it as a mother, but then also I started examining it as a food producer. Like, how do we actually create stuff that is food positive? It's not, and especially in the confectionery space, which, most of that gets cobbled together with chemicals and flavorings and food colorings. So that's really how I think my investigation into what he was eating really translated to what the recipes that I would design for Mellow. Literally, that's where that came from.
Wow. So these are things that you feel good about.
Oh, absolutely.
Your son eating.
Absolutely. I mean, and I feel good that my son eats it. I feel good that my clients' sons and children eat it. I feel, I have no, I can't tell you how many parents are like, oh my gosh, it's like, I can give them a lollipop that has no red dye in it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's significant, and the impact it has on, that's another example to go back to your question, where should we draw a line? We should draw a line in this country to say we shouldn't put stuff in our food that our bodies can't metabolize. It's a basic thing. We should push back on that.
Yeah, make a big difference.
Absolutely.
And still taste good.
It still really
tastes great.
There's no corn syrup or even high fructose corn. There's no, all these sort of things that are just, chemical compounds that I understand their value. I understand what they do.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're food.
We talked about you as a mom, you as a business owner. How do you not lose yourself in that?
And sometimes I do, and you know, I meditate. I mean, not to sound, but I do. I really do take these moments where I sit down and I center myself and I center my thoughts and I try and tease out what I'm feeling, because I'm a typical entrepreneur in the sense that I'm like, I dive headfirst into the project and I'm figuring it out as I'm diving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that can create some difficult situations, both for me, my family, and the people that work for me. But I also have that other space that allows me to sit down and to quiet my own mind and decide what I think about something, and then make some decisions about which direction I think we need to go in or not.
You know, sometimes we do. We get wrapped up in everything. We lose ourselves in it. You know, we're totally consumed by it. And then I think we feel bad, like doing that is bad or doing that is wrong. But do you think we should flip the mentality on that? You know, like sometimes you have to get lost in something.
Absolutely. I mean, and I say that to my son all the time. Like because a lot of times I do recipe development. If I'm at home working on something, I'll do that at home.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you, sometimes he'll say, hey, you know, Mom, come play this game with me or whatnot. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not going to play the game with you right now. And I probably won't get to play that game with you until tomorrow.
Right.
Right? And I think that's good for them. You know, it's like Miles is the center of our world, but he's got to learn to live in the world. You know, it's like, I'm a human being, his dad's a human being, and the world is set up really for men to do that more often than it is for women, and my family's no different. You know, it's like, well, but I do think it's important that we create that space for ourselves to figure out the stuff we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can function.
And it is the reality of the world.
It is.
Like, it's got to get done.
It is. I mean, and I don't, that's another thing. I don't apologize to my son for that. If I'm not available for something, I don't apologize for that. It's like, I need to do this, and I need you to understand this is important to me. Yeah? Because I do that for you. If something's really important to you, then I make that work. You need to do the same for the people in your life. That's part of being a part of your family community and the larger community that you live in.
Yeah, reciprocate that.
Absolutely.
With the pandemic, we've kind of asked everybody that we've done these interviews with to give us a word or a phrase that would describe the pandemic or their experience in this pandemic.
A dumpster fire with a silver lining.
I love that. Do you want to elaborate? That's fantastic.
It was a dumpster fire for those reasons I was saying before.
Yeah.
It was really, really painful. But the silver lining of it all was we came out the other side with a business model that I am 100% confident is going to do great going forward. Yeah. And that came because I could stop, even in my panic, I just stopped and thought about it. I thought, well, if you're going to break it up anyway, what do you need it to be? What do you need it to be? Yeah. So that has been huge for me, really huge. And that's the silver lining. We have a business model that I think is really viable and I think is going to do really well going forward. We would have not only survived the pandemic, but we would have thrived post the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's huge.